The Constitution of the Roman Republic was a set of guidelines and principles passed down mainly through precedent. The Constitution was largely unwritten and uncodified and evolved over time. Rather than creating a government that was primarily a democracy, as was ancient Athens, an aristocracy, as was ancient Sparta, or a monarchy, as was Rome before and in many respects after the Republic, the Roman constitution mixed three elements of governance into their overall political system. The democratic element took the form of legislative assemblies, the aristocratic element took the form of the Senate, and the monarchical element took the form of the many-term limited consuls. The Senate's ultimate authority derived from the esteem and prestige of the senators, and was based on both precedent and custom. The Senate passed decrees which were called senatus consulta, ostensibly advice handed down from the Senate to a magistrate. In practice, the magistrates usually followed the senatus consulta. The focus of the Roman Senate was usually foreign policy. However, the power of the Senate expanded over time as the power of the legislative assemblies declined, and eventually the Senate took a greater role in civil lawmaking. Senators were usually appointed by Roman censors, but during times of military emergency, such as the civil wars of the 1st century BCE, this practice became less prevalent, and the Roman dictator, triumvir of the Senate itself, would select its members. Roman citizenship was a vital prerequisite to possessing many important legal rights, such as the rights to trial and appeal, marriage, suffrage, to hold office, to enter binding contracts, and to enjoy special tax exemptions. An adult male citizen with full legal and political rights was called optimo jure. The optimo jure elected assemblies, and the assemblies elected magistrates, enacted legislation, presided over trials in capital cases, declared war and peace, and forged or dissolved treaties. There were two types of legislative assemblies. The first was the comitia, committees, which were assemblies of all optimo jure. The second was the concilia, councils, which were assemblies of specific groups of optimo jure. Citizens on these assemblies were organized further on the basis of curiae, familial groupings, centuries for military purposes, and tribes for civil purposes, and each would gather into their own assemblies. The curiate assembly served only a symbolic purpose in the late Republic, though. The assembly was used to ratify the powers of newly elected magistrates by passing laws known as leges curiatae. The Comitia Centuriata was the assembly of centuries, or soldiers. The president of the Comitia Centuriata was usually a consul, and the Comitia Centuriata would elect magistrates who had imperium powers, so consuls and praetors. It also elected censors. Only the Comitia Centuriata could declare war and ratify the results of a census. It also served as the highest court of appeal in certain judicial cases. The Assembly of the Tribes, the Comitia Tributa, was presided over by a consul and was composed of 35 tribes. The tribes were not ethnic or kinship groups, but rather geographical subdivisions. While it did not pass many laws, the Comitia Tributa did elect quaestors, curule aediles, and military tribunes. The plebeian council was identical to the Assembly of the Tribes, but excluded the patricians. They elected their own officers, plebeian tribunes, and plebeian aediles. Usually, a plebeian tribune would preside over the assembly. This assembly passed most laws and could also act as a court of appeal. Magistrates were the elected officials of the Roman Republic. Each magistrate was vested with a degree of power, and the dictator, when there was one, had the highest level of power. Below the dictator was the censor, when they existed, and the consuls, the highest-ranking ordinary magistrates. Two were elected every year and wielded supreme power in both civil and military powers. The ranking among both consuls flipped every month, with one outranking the other. Below the consuls were the praetors, who administered civil law, presided over the courts, and commanded provincial armies. Censors conducted the Roman census, during which time they would appoint people to the Senate. Curule aediles were officers elected to conduct domestic affairs in Rome, who were vested with power over the markets, public games, and shows. Finally, at the bottom of magistrate rankings were the quaestors, who usually assisted the consuls in Rome and the governors in the provinces with financial tasks. Plebeian tribunes and plebeian aediles were considered representatives of the people and acted as a popular check over the Senate through the use of their veto powers, thus safeguarding the civil liberties of all Roman citizens. Each magistrate could only veto an action that was taken by an equal or lower ranked magistrate. The most significant constitutional power a magistrate could hold was that of imperium, or command, which was held only by consuls and praetors. This gave the magistrate in question the constitutional authority to issue commands, military or otherwise. Election to a magisterial office resulted in automatic membership in the Senate for life, unless impeached. Once a magistrate's annual term in office expired, he had to wait at least 10 years before serving in that office again. Occasionally, however, a magistrate would have his command powers extended through prorogation, which effectively allowed him to retain the powers of his office as a pro-magistrate.